Hi, Paul. You had a nice week, Paul?
I've been working in freezing cold on a
Right.
bombed out site on a film called Blitz. It's a wartime story about people trying to get into underground and the bombing of London. Yeah, so it's pretty good.
Oh, good.
On Monday and Tuesday.
That sounds very nice.
Part of as a one of the rescuers.
Have you got to go far? Do you go far for that, or is it on your doorstep?
Yeah, Leeds, and so it's it's a 2-hour drive for me.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I stay up overnight.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm on the United Artists logo. So if everybody's on that logo, we'll begin very shortly.
I'm on it.
Okay. Right. Okay. Without further ado, so thank you very much, Paul, for joining us for this watch along of The Living Daylight. So we're just going to press play from a countdown from 5 to play, and then we'll just talk through the film and see how we go. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Paul, was this was your first role as stunt supervisor, having of course done continuing amount of work on, say, for example, Octopussy. How did you make the transition to stunt supervisor?
I was very fortunate that they'd asked me. I was supposed to work on A View to a Kill. Martin Grace wanted to do it on his own, so 2 weeks before they said, Martin wants to do it on his own. He's going off to San Francisco. So off they went, and so when they came back, they asked me to do the next one, which was this one. I was very happy to do so. Fantastic.
It's a lovely opening sequence, isn't it, in Gibraltar, with the skydiving in down onto the Rock of Gibraltar. BJ Worth, of course, doing, and I think Jake Lombard as well. Do you remember much about BJ and Jake?
No, I've worked with him obviously on the next following films, and on Octopussy. Great guys. I mean, they're experts at what they do, and they perfected the art of skydiving for film. With concealed parachutes, they've done some fantastic stuff. I mean, that low drop, lower than the rock itself, just amazing. Really talented guys.
Yeah. I mean, obviously very dangerous because of the terrain, and they have to land in very specific spots as well.
And there's gusts of wind. They really have to be in control of those canopies.
So as stunt supervisor, you're of course supervising the stunts for the whole film. But when it comes to BJ and Jake Lombard, I guess you don't have to do too much because that they know that.
Yes, they know what they're doing, and you just trust that they understand what is necessary, and they do it. They you storyboard it for them, and they're great. They'll just achieve whatever's on the storyboards. More.
We had a question come in particularly about the Gibraltar sequence. What was it like to work in Gibraltar?
It was fabulous. Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely island, and we got all the facilities we needed. It was so convenient. I mean, just to come over from London and to shoot. Simon Crane playing a part, who was doubling for Timothy as well. Yeah. So dear Fred there, who came in at the last minute, told everybody he was great at heights and whatever, but typical actor, he was really scared, but he did a great job. And we had a dummy fall in there, and then Simon did a roll down, the last bit, because it was really jagged, that the metal on the chutes.
Yes.
The water chute there. And as I say, we had 4 minutes to make Timothy Dalton the new Bond. So Timothy and I went through it and said, what could I allow him to do? I didn't know him that well, obviously, but I had to trust him. I could have wired him on the top of that, and he couldn't have moved. Oh, you've got to pause here a minute because there's a great actor coming on in a minute.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I will mention it. Yes.
Yeah, John Glenn said you've got to do that. I went no, but he made me do it. And all the crew stand around the front, behind the camera, making faces and trying to make you break up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had I think it was Dominic on the doubling for Timothy on the top of that one, and Dominic and there was Michelle, I think, was driving. This is one of our great guys. To get that shot, when you're being knocked down by a high vehicle, it's very difficult to get up and be seen on the windscreen. If you were to do a knockdown, you'd be run into the ground. So I put a mini trampoline on the front of the Jeep, got all the close-ups of it coming towards him, and then stood him on the mini tramp and drove towards the gates. And at a certain point, he would jump on the mini trampoline and hit the windscreen and bounce off. So you didn't see the mini tramp strapped on the front of the Jeep.
Yeah, yeah.
This little part here, I played about 4 parts here. I jumped out of the way of that one, and then you see me jump over the fence there.
Yeah.
And I was also the feet on fire in the back of this. And then when we got to the next bit, yeah, we did the fight inside there, and then I think I appear about another. That's me jumping out the way there with a no t-shirt, and that's me jumping out the way there. So I did about 6 little bits because I just didn't have enough stunt people out there.
Yeah, yeah.
But it all worked, so that was the main thing.
I guess, I suppose that was but the reason behind you doing the little cameo and Simon as well, sort of because it was, you had a very small unit, it's just kind of sort of do you had around really, sort of.
Yeah, that's all you can do. You know, you have to stick within your budget and use as the guys as best you can.
And Arthur Worcester is the second unit director. So he's the one that's kind of in charge of this, or how much are you able to sort of?
Well, Arthur was wonderful. He used to say to me, because I've done many films with him, it's you talk to the actors, I'll sort out the camera, because he didn't like talking too much to the actors. But he was a fantastic camera operator and the second unit director. I mean, the action that he's done over the years, or he did on all the Bonds and other movies, was just outstanding.
Just doing a quick check where you are on the film, Paul. I've just the opening credits have just started, so I've got Ian Fleming's 007.
Yeah,
that where you are. Yeah,
yeah, just at the Art Malik and John Rhys Davis. You on the title?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've now got Thomas Wheatley, Judy T. Wallace. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably be a second or two out, but.
Yeah, I did the titles on this with Diana. Was it on this one? No, it was on the next one. Yes. Well, I did the titles of these for Octopussy and this one, and License to Kill. With Morris Binder, and all the girls were almost naked.
Right.
It's a tough job.
Yeah, so that's you with the models doubling for Timothy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what was Maurice like to work with?
He was wonderful. He was knew exactly what he wanted, or he knew images he wanted, and he would experiment and try different different ways of achieving what he had in mind. But yes, just amazing. You know, an artist really in terms of creating a visual effect, bodies and lighting and lasers. One time we had stacks of lasers, and I was running down a laser tunnel with a girl holding a girl's hand, and just amazing stuff. But yeah, he was very talented.
I suppose the censors never had an issue with the titles, because it's probably where all nudity is in a Bond film, isn't it? It's all the women, but because it's seen as more sort of artistic, they get away with it.
Yes, and he did it. I mean, did some fantastic title sequences.
So would you do all that in a day or two, or was it a bit longer process?
A bit longer. It was would take a few days to do, because you were on different sets as well. You know, you'd have maybe the blue backing, the girls doing somersaults and whatever, and the lighting would be difficult. You know, you'd have to take time doing the lighting. And with the laser stuff, you know, it was a blacked out studio with smoke, and then lasers going through the smoke, picking up the laser beams, and then girls running through them and I'm running through them. Yeah, just amazing stuff he achieved.
Yeah, and they say quite a nice different thing for you to do as well.
Yes, yeah, to see that side of it as well, and to be able to be, you know, contribute to it.
So if we've got a good point to talk about some of the actors we're seeing. Of course, we'll come to Timothy Dalton in a minute, but Jerome Crabbe as the wonderful Koskov. Do you remember Jerome at all?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, he was very nice man, very willing to do anything. Yes, nice sense of humor. No side to him at all.
Yeah. There was a Bond convention at Pinewood Studios a few years ago, and he was one of the guests, and you could tell he loved, you know, being a part of Bond as much as the fans enjoyed it. So he was very much a sort of really nice guy to meet. Were you aware, Paul, going into this film, there was a bit more pressure as opposed to some of the others that you did before, because of course you've got a new Bond. It's the 25th anniversary of the franchise as well. Was there a sense that the game had to be upped a little bit?
Yes, yeah, and I think it was going to be. I think they knew Timothy was a very good actor, and he was a little political, and I think that they knew that. I'm sure they knew that talking to him that he wanted to play it more like the Bond books. I mean, wanted to, you know, make it really, and he wanted. He said, if I get punched in the nose, I want to bleed for two scenes until it gets better. If I get kicked in the leg, I want to limp. But I don't think Cubby was ready for that to happen at that time. So you had to calm him down a bit, but you wanted to make it realistic. And I think the way he played it was very realistic and true to the character. It was just, you couldn't, you know, we didn't want to make it too violent too soon. He wanted to play it like Daniel's playing it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he had to be held back a little in terms of the violence of the character. After Roger, you know, just brushing his hair back and getting on with the, you know, kissing the girls after a big fight, yeah, you couldn't really change it that quickly.
Yeah. I think you're right. The tone of this is sort of a midway point from Roger's last view to License to Kill. So it's kind of like a stepping stone, isn't it, between the two? You're saying about having to put to perhaps rein in Timothy a little bit in terms of, I think with the Jeep sequence, he was wanted to get involved quite a bit, and I think he was doing probably more than, say, Roger Moore would have done.
Oh God, yeah. Still Roger wouldn't have been up there. I mean, Roger had nothing to prove, so I think Timothy did. And we discussed whether I should wire him on top of the Jeep. My problem was, if I wired him on, he couldn't move, and he could, it'll be fairly static on the top. But my problem was, if I wired him on and the Jeep went over, he would be really taken into, it would roll on top of him. So yeah, I took a chance that he was strong enough to hold on to the handholds that I'd sewn onto the top of the canvas, and he was able to pull himself along. I had a platform on the other side of the Jeep, so that every time he put his leg too far over, he was getting a bit cocky to swing about too much. I'd whack his leg and make sure he got back on the middle of it again. But he was very good and had great courage.
I mean, would you have to take somebody like Timothy Dalton before you started? Well, there wasn't much time, wasn't there, really, because he was getting starved. Yeah. I mean, normally, would you have liked a few weeks before shooting began to sort of train a leading man up if it was a stunt?
Yeah, I think it just all happened with Pierce too late, and they just had to make a decision and went with it, and Timothy was able to pick it up very quickly and give them something that was really worthwhile.
Oh yeah. I mean, so when you were, before Timothy arrived, of course, you'd probably spent quite a while with Brosnan in mind, and sort of thinking, and then of course it all changed.
Yeah.
Do you think the action would have been different with Pierce Brosnan as opposed to Timothy?
Yes, I think it would have been much lighter in terms of the way, as he did play it, eventually. But he would have been really persuaded to be more like Roger than say Sean Connery or Timothy, as Timothy went on to play it. I think he'd have been slightly in between the two. And I don't think he would have insisted too much on playing it, too viciously.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a very good Bond. He's just, I think it was underrated, and I think the scripts and the CGI let him down.
Yeah, I think his last film, I think, maybe sort of gave a lasting impression. All that's what his era was. It was all CGI, invisible cars, and that kind of stuff. But of course, the three films prior to that had been much more serious. But I suppose the impression people were left with was, yes, it got a bit sort of, it was going down more the Moonraker sort of scale of things, I suppose. Because you did work with Pierce Brosnan, I believe, on Death Train.
Yes, I directed second unit on that with him. I've known him for years, and I also did a Coca-Cola commercial with him.
All right, yeah.
And he was really a good action actor. He was very good. You could trust him. I had him on under the train on Death Train, and I said, just come poke your head out. I had boards underneath. He was all right. I said, just poke your head out, and as you come up, I had a camera following him, starting to come up. Then I would have cut to, I was doubling for him as well on the shot that we've already got of me coming out. But he got up all the way and just held on the side and run along the top of the train. He was, and I felt very comfortable with him to be able to do that.
Yeah. I think one thing they have in common, but Brosnan and Dalton, is that they have a sensitivity that they bring to Bond. They have that harder edge. I mean, Pierce didn't always get a chance to have that harder edge, but he did occasionally, and you got the sense that he was somebody that was a killer, a bit like Dalton's Bond, but also because, I mean, The Living Daylights has a very much a romance as very central to the film. So you see Bond being a bit more sensitive, and Brosnan did that as well.
And it was, of course, at the time that AIDS and God knows what was going on, and we just had to, Bond couldn't be promiscuous anymore. He had to be, a one-woman man, really.
And I think that suited the story. I think that's one reason why Bond films have always lasted as long as they have, is because they always do change to the attitudes, the different decades, problems of the time, etc.
Yeah, I think they had to. I mean, it's sort of progressed over the years, isn't it? To get into, I mean, when you're having to compete with Bourne Identity and things like movies like that, that are so hard and so violent, you've got to be realistic with your audience and bring them, into modern day acceptance of movies, really.
I think that might also be a reason why the gaps between the Bond films and the fans don't always like it, that it's getting longer between the films. One of the reasons why it has to be the gaps is because filmmaking is much more, with health and safety and other reasons, much more complex.
The health and safety has gone mad over the years, I might tell you. Really bad. But so, good for us, but whereas we used to be able to do lots of stuff physically for ourselves, now it's being questioned. Oh, is that safe? Can you will you sign this? Make sure that no one else is taking responsibility of something that you feel quite happy to do, and you're physically able to do. But they question it, and nobody wants to take the ultimate responsibility.
Yeah.
When I first started, we used to have to sign a blood chit, which meant that you'd be on a building about to fall off, and the producer come out and say, "Hold on, has he signed a blood chit?" And if you haven't, you have to come down and sign a blood chit, and you're signing your life away. It meant that the company had no responsibility at all for anything. If you fell on somebody and hurt them, they could sue you. They couldn't sue the company. If anything happened on the set that you were involved with, it was your responsibility. So that was called a blood chit, and we are lucky enough we were able to stop that, because it was illegal, really, to sign away your common law rights.
Well, absolutely, yeah. I think I know we've touched on it in other conversations, that how precarious it was almost to be in the stunt world back in the 60s and 70s, because you didn't have all the health and safety, the protection, what happens if you got injured, the insurance, all that sort of thing. So now, of course, it's a much better industry from that point of view, certainly. Yeah,
it's much safer. They can get rid of wires, so you can be, you don't have to fall off a building. You can be on a descender, which is a wire descender, and you can fall all of 100 feet, 200 feet. It's as long as the cable, and then they just wipe out the cable. Whereas before, we were actually doing it ourselves. You had to do it. There was no way of losing the wires like on Superman. You just had to try to lose the wires, or come up with ideas of making them fly without wires.
Well, we'll come back to Superman in a second, if I may, Paul, but I just want to say that during the Q laboratory sequence, I believe this is when Prince Charles and Princess Diana visited the set, and you were around at that time, I believe.
Yeah. Well, we put on a fight for them, and that's when I hit Simon over the head. No, I chase Simon out the door. We do a sword fight just for a show for them, and Simon goes out the door, and then I take a bow, and then as I come up, Simon hits me over the head with a breakaway bottle, and then I collapse to the floor. That was the end of the show. So we went over and we were presented, and he said to me, "What's the bottles? What's it made of?" And I said, "Well, it's resin. I said, would you like to hit me over the head with one? So he said, yes, yes. So he hit me over the head with the bottle. And then he said to me, could you hit me over the head with one? Well, I had a box of bottles, but some of them come up a bit heavy. And I thought, oh, I don't want to crown the king, the prince before his time. So I picked out a light one. And then Diane said to me, can I hit him? And I said, yes, but you've got to hit him hard. You've got to really, if you don't break the bottle, you break his head. So make sure you hit him right. And she did. She went for it and she smashed it over his head. And that photo went all around the world. Princess crowned prince. So yeah, it was. They were very nice, very pleasant. And she asked all the right questions about, you know, what does your wife feel about you, you know, doing stunts and things like that. So yeah, it was a real honor to have met them, and then I met them again at the premiere. So it's very nice.
And am I correct that Prince Charles pressed the button to send the rocket from the ghetto blaster to the dummy? Is that right?
Yeah, they showed him all the tricks, and he went through it, and I think he was quite interested in how they were done, really. And that was the special effects department showing their prowess.
Yeah. We were saying about Superman briefly. You were saying that back then the wires had to be, it was a piano wire, I think, wasn't it, used on Superman, because you couldn't.
Broke on me.
Yeah.
One called on the piano. These are the wire that we used to fly with, because you just couldn't get rid of them. And you know, the thick wires you could see so easily. So we took them down to 18 gauge piano wire, and I was flying one day and they broke, and I fell on my head and broke my cheekbone and damaged my wrists. So yeah, we realized then that wires do break, and then we had to find a way of using slightly thicker wires. We had a Bowden cable, which was like 6 thin wires bound together, which was a bit stronger.
I mean, if you think of the stuff they got Christopher Reeve to do, you know, he was up in the air 30-40 feet. It was, you'd never do it these days. It was,
well, you could do it on your thick cables now, but the wires we were still, you know, they were still quite thin. With him and Richard Pryor, you know, up there together, 50 feet in the air.
Yeah. But
it all worked, so it's good.
Oh yeah. I think it gives it a realism, doesn't it, when you do it all live as well. You know, as good as CGI is, you lose, I think, some of the weight of objects. It just doesn't quite. I think the brain can tell, I think, if it's something that's, if it's real or if it isn't. We're of course here at Stoner House now.
This is a very good fight that Bill Weston and Dougie Robertson worked on, and really good. I was really pleased with it.
We're about to get a cameo by Sid Child's Parrot, aren't we? Chrome just popped up here. I'm sure a lot of people know that Chrome also appeared in For Your Eyes Only, and so there's a little connection there. And I think originally, Sid was saying it was Diana Rigg's Parrot, and then she had it. So here we got the very good fight scene. So this was Doug Robinson that choreographed this one.
Yeah.
Bill Weston, am I correct? Bill was your brother, wasn't he?
No.
I wasn't sure in my research, because I wasn't. You know, it's always difficult to tell sometimes, but it was just a coincidence in terms of name.
Yeah, it was. But he was a very lovely man.
Yeah.
So awfully, very, very posh, but very nice. Good performer. I think he was ex-military. Very good.
I mean, a bit like yourself, he'd done a. When you look at your IMDb pages, they're very similar. What Bill did and what you
Yes,
did as
we
well.
worked a lot together over the years.
Hmm. And so very sad he died far too young, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah. He was a Buddhist,
Hmm.
very peaceful, loving man.
Hmm. I suppose you should mention Andreas Wanensky as Necros. A very impressive physicality to him, being a dancer in background. What was he like to work
He was
with?
lovely. Yeah, he's very good. You did at first. I didn't know how to, how to treat him. Whether he was physical enough and a good enough actor. But he was, and he did everything that was asked of him, and brought a real menace to him as the size of him as well.
Hmm. And I think also because I think I've seen him in various documentaries saying that because he came from a dancing background, the physicalities of stunt work kind of comes a bit easier than say somebody who's got two left feet.
Yes, yeah, no, he was, he was very balanced, and any movement you gave him, he could take very easily.
Hmm.
He was very agile.
Hmm. Was it quite easy to work at in this stately house? Because of course you've got people like yourself and John Richardson. You can't obviously mess anything up. So it must have been.
Yeah, it was difficult. There was a staircase that they made that we blew up, but that was it wasn't part of the actual house.
Hmm.
It was Chris Webb that was playing one of the parts. It got blown up on the stairs, and Colin sleeping, if I remember rightly.
Hmm.
But all good performers, and it worked very well.
Hmm. I think that's the other thing about the Bonds is that there is a family of players, actors, but also stunt people, various crew members. So, of course, if you get somebody that's good, you keep bringing them back. So,
Once you've got a team together, you know exactly what they can do. You don't ask a stunt person to do something that they wouldn't be excellent at. You ask them to do a high fall if they're a horseman, and they don't particularly like high falls because your name's up there, so you've got to get the best person to do the job.
Yeah.
So having a varied team, you've got different people to pick from for their specialities really.
Did you ever get a chance to meet some of the supporting actors? So Jeffrey Keane and Robert Brown. Did you ever encounter people like that?
Not a great deal. Brown, I got out in where Key West was where I met him. Really, although he'd been around for years and he'd been on a lot of the old Ivanhoe pictures, and he'd been around the stages and around the studios a lot. He's a very prolific actor, really.
Just thinking back to being Gibraltar, because it was the military side that you were using for the sequence. Was there any kind of restrictions and because of the MOD side of it?
No, just going in and out was the main thing. But they were all very helpful, and we used a couple of military as actors, really, as firing the guns on the rock. But they were very, very helpful. And it's quite a if you ever get a chance to go up there, it's quite a thing to see those magnificent guns that they could fire like 20 miles into North Africa.
I think Gibraltar is quite a weird place. I went there a few years ago, and it's sort of you get British telephone boxes, but you've got oranges on the trees, and it's kind of as a British, it's I didn't quite feel what was I in Britain? Was I in Spain? You know, it kind of felt a bit sort of. I can understand with so many, you know, British people end up going there, but it was felt a bit confusing, a bit Avengers like perhaps, you know.
Yes, it is. It is strange because it's so British once you're on the rock itself, and yet you have to get there. You have to go through the Spanish border.
Hmm.
It was sometimes very restrictive. You know, they didn't particularly like us going across the border too much, and there was always a problem. And there was one time we just finished shooting, and the armourer said, "Let's go across and have a meal in Spain," and we'd just go across because the planes land on the main road. So they stop the road while the planes land, and then you can go across the road and go to the border. And we were waiting there, and there was about 4 of us in the car, and his boot was full. It was full. He remembered as we were about to go towards the border that he had all the ammunition and all the guns in there. And he went, "Oh no, Jesus!" And if we'd have tried to get across and they'd have stopped us, we'd probably still be in prison. But we spun around very quickly and decided not to go across that night.
I have to mention that wonderful Desmond Llewellyn, just saw the classic Q scene. Did you have any memories of Desmond Llewellyn at all?
Yes, yeah, he was a lovely man. He couldn't always remember his lines because some of them were quite tricky. The gadgets that he had, but he was a lovely man, and I had him a couple of times on corporate shows. And one show we did in Pinewood, I had him as Q, and he had all the plans in the briefcase case, and we had the villains come in and trying to take it. And then we did big explosions in the grounds at Pinewood Studios. But he was great. He would do corporate shows like that, and they loved him to come and just do 10, 20 minutes of chats, about Bonds and whatever, just over lunch. It was a really good, very nice man. And I doubled for him on License to Kill.
Oh, right, yeah.
He gets pushed back in the room and falls over a chair.
Oh, yes, yes.
It was lovely. And I can do it. I said, "I don't think so." It might be a bit heavy, but
he always seemed quite up for doing as much as he could. I believe when he in the film where Koskov is escaping in the plane, it's the top of this big tower. I think John Glenn for laugh said, "Well, you've got to run up these steps, Desmond," and he sort of was, took a little pill for his heart, whatever it was, and I was quite prepared to do it. And they said, "Oh no, you just need to do a few steps." So I think there was nothing that he wouldn't do for the Bond films.
And he quite liked the physical side of it if he could get away with it.
Yeah, I remember meeting him at a couple of conventions at Pinewood when I was only 12, 13 at that time, and he would come in his costume essentially. You'd very recognizably, and he was, a wonderful man to meet.
No, he was a really good old Welsh gentleman. He did have a bit of an accent, so.
Yeah. And I think originally Terence Young wanted him to play it Welsh. Again, the fans will know these stories, and of course he did a little bit in the accent, and Terence went, no, don't do that. So it just didn't quite work for the character, I don't think. But, so of course we introduced the idea of the cello case that's going to become quite central to an action sequence shortly. What did you think when you first heard the idea of this skiing down in the cello?
It's a bit ludicrous, really. But if you can make it work and it fits in, I know John Glenn wanted it in there, so Yeah, you just make it work. And we had them built with skis on underneath both sides, and you could actually slightly control it, but it wasn't. It was pretty loose on its own. Once it went, you could dig the cello in and guide it a little, but most of the time it just went straight down the piste. You know, it just followed the tracks really.
Yeah.
Very interesting to try.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it was John Glenn's idea. I think originally, and I think a lot of people were skeptical, a bit skeptical like yourself. But I think once they sort of looked into it, I think they thought it was quite a unique thing because I think with Bond, even in the 80s, there were so many copycats, and it was trying to find, well, what's unique, and that of course certainly was.
Yeah, yeah. And it worked. It did, you know, whatever reason you could think of getting them over the border, you know, you had to come up with something, either skiing over the snow in one sort of vehicle or another, and that was, I suppose, a funny way of doing it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it works very well. We're seeing a lovely scene between Timothy Dalton and Mayim Dabo. Do you remember Mariam at all?
Yes, yeah, yeah. She was lovely. Yeah, I think she played it just right. I think, you know, to be what she was supposed to be, as simple and naive she was her character was supposed to be. I think she played it well, and she was very good when coming to the physical stuff. But she had to ride a horse and things like that when we got to Morocco. But yeah, she was very good actress too. And at that time, obviously, they were trying to get it. You know, it was a politically correct to make her our own woman, as you know, every Bond girl wants to say, well, you know, I'm not just sort of elbow candy. I'm an actress, and this is my part, and I'm playing it. But you know, in the books, they are really sort of accomplices to Bond. You know, they don't really take on that bigger, stronger a role, and that was the way it was played over the years. But now, you know, over the last probably 20 years, you know, the character, the women's parts are becoming stronger and stronger, and they're more acceptable in their own right. It's just it was very misogynist, I should think, in the early days.
I mean, yeah. I mean, of course, you had the occasional groundbreaking actresses, Honor Blackman, who would, of course, you know, was throwing Sean Connery over the shoulder just as much as the villains would. But then, of course, you did have the more eye candy, so it's kind of depended on from film to film a little bit. But yes, I think certainly this is the start of the modern sort of Bond woman, I guess, with the Living Daylights.
Yeah, and I think she played it very well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She looked as though she could play the cello. So
yeah, you wouldn't. I think unless you knew how to play the cello, you wouldn't notice in her scenes that she wasn't doing it. So
yeah.
And I think it's nice that she plays and sort of an everyday person, just an innocent that kind of gets swept up in the danger. You know, similar scenarios to what you would see in the TV series like Man from U.N.C.L.E. or The Avengers and that sort of thing. Very relatable, I think, as a character and also as an actress.
Yeah.
And I think it was quite nice that they had the Aston Martin back for this one, particularly being the 25th anniversary.
Absolutely. I think it was a shame that they, you know, didn't continue with them. It's all down to product placement, wasn't it?
Yes, I was seeing BMW offer them a truckload of money, and that's sort of why they went in for the Boston films. But I mean, would you sort of be around this sort of talking about the input of what they want to do to the car and that sort of thing, or was that more someone
Not
say?
really. No, that was, it was really put in the script very early. So they decided, it would have been decided what they could do with cars, and it took months really to rig them to perform them,
Yeah.
to make them perform in the way that the script requires. This was quite good. We had to cut that in half, that truck, and the special effects blew it in half, and he drove through. But there's all my stunt guys, Austrians and Germans and English. So yeah, it was nice location to shoot in.
Because this I think was in January or something like, so quite cold, I imagine, at this stage.
Yes, it was. And the sequence on the lake itself, I don't know if are you watching the car going on?
I've just seen Bond cut the police car in half, sort of. Yeah.
Just a little ahead of you is when they're going down onto the lake itself. When we went there for a recce, it was just starting to freeze over, and when water freezes over, you can look straight through. It's like looking down, it's standing on the glass. You can see all the fish underneath, and it's not until it starts cracking up and going white that you can't see underneath it. So we first went out there, about 12 of us on the lake, to have a look at it, and we could see the fish underneath and everything. And then suddenly there was a sound of crack, and everyone tried to run because they thought it was cracking underneath them. But you can't run on ice, so it was quite funny. But to stop it thawing out at night, because you get a light dusting, you get a dusting of snow, and that became insulation to the ice, so the ice wouldn't freeze anymore. It would almost be insulating the cold out. So your hubby and the art department said, right, we've got to clear that lake. So they had piece machines that went, do the piece on the skiing slopes. That was me diving out the way of that. So yeah, they were over there all night, going with bulldozers, scraping the snow off the top, because the thicker the snow got on top, the less solid the ice would be underneath.
Right.
They did very well in terms of, and Cubby said to Barbara, look after the boys, and she went out there across the lake with bottles of brandy and giving the boys a tot of brandy, because it was bitter cold out there.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Stop the ice from melting by taking the snow off the top.
Because I think at one point the Aston Martin almost went through the ice, and I think they had to sort of pull it out, but nothing was actually lost for the ice, though, was it?
No, when they were clearing the snow off the top of the lake, one of the piece clearer snow things was too close to the edge. It's at the edge of the lake, it gets thinner, and one of them fell in, and the driver just got out as it turned sideways up and went on into the lake.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful sequence that we're watching now with the actual in the cello case. Of course, you've got squibs going off under the snow, and so sort of to mimic the bullet hits. But you say quite uncontrollable. And I think there was, in one of the documentaries I was watching in preparation, there was a shot of you trying to sort of jump and catch the cello case, because it was so unpredictable and it just wouldn't stop.
Yeah. That's right. I had to run out in front of them because it did go. Once it went over the hill, it went straight. It was quite steep, so we had to stop them before they went over the edge.
Yeah.
It was it's unpredictable, and we had a couple of good doubles in there, and we did the wide shots with them. And then when we had Timothy and Marion in there, we just had to make sure they were safe and didn't go out of control.
Yeah.
But we had some great shots. You know, one of the guys with the camera was skiing backwards faster than most people could ski forward, and he was skiing backwards with the camera in between his legs to holding it to get the shot. But great stuff.
I think Miriam was the one who was controlling the cello case. So to do that, you know, took some guts, didn't it, really, to sort of do that?
Yes, yeah, she did very well. You could just about control it, you know, one side, I think. But it was a fun sequence to do, because you were trying, you know, you're up against it every sort of, if it was too icy in the morning, it just ran away from you. I mean, it was just too much. So you just had to pick your right time and make sure that the snow was acceptable, was safe enough to do.
Would you, for the dialogue bit of that cello sequence, would you have attached the cello onto some sort of platform and had control of it, or?
Yes, it was on like a platform, and you could control it, and you could control the sled that he was on. So that was the main thing. And so, and they tried putting a camera just on the front, made a sled and put a camera on it, but it was so bouncy, it was almost surrealistic. It was like just hazy. It was like everything was shaking, and you could see the figures, but it was in color. It was like really weird. It just didn't work. It was, you had to have a separate spongy underneath the camera to take some of the absorb some of the shock of the snow and ridges.
And what was Austria like working as a country in terms of how it operates? Was Austria quite a good place to be based?
Yes, it was, yeah, and very efficient, and anything you wanted you could get, and all the soldiers that I had on one side of the border, and when we shot that, it was in Austria and the Italian border, where we shot the car going over the border. So I had, and on the Austrian side, all the German soldiers, and they were great. They give them guns, and it was freezing cold. They had, you know, not really the best boots on, but they put up with it. It was cold. Your feet were cold, your hands were cold, but they were very military, and they did exactly what I asked them. I got on the other side of the border and got the Italians and got them into costume. Said, hey, the shoes, they're very cold, the boots, they're no good. Said, no, it's okay, you'll be all right. It won't be you won't be out there long. Give them a gun. Hey, look at the gun, I got a gun. Ba, 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 ba. Just mentality was totally different. Really had to control them. They'd be out there for 2 or 3 hours, like they were on the Austrian side, but the Italians, hey, we go back to the hotel. No, it's very cold, you know, it's very cold. But yeah, it was just amazing, the change just across that border, the attitude, and just to get them to work was really something.
Oh yeah. Some lovely locations now in Vienna, and of course this connection with John Glenn being the third man as well. Was shot around a lot of these locations. Again, was this a pleasant sort of area to be based at for a bit?
I mean, it was North Italy, and Arthur and I would go and look for locations, and you're not supposed to ski, you know, they for pleasure, you've got to do your job, and you know, so weekends you're not supposed to ski in case you twist your ankle or whatever. So Arthur and I used to go off and look for locations. So we'd go up on the cable cars and ski all the way down, and we had a great time. Arthur and I. But he did twist his ankle at one time, which was a bit embarrassing, which was on the Sunday. But lovely country, and they were both Italy and Austria were very welcoming.
I suppose the nice thing about being a Bond film, it opens the doors, doesn't it? So you don't have to, nothing's too much trouble almost.
They did. We had great special effects assistants and working with John Richardson, and they were a bit wicked to each other. They would always be playing jokes on each other. And one night at a party, and it had been freezing and the snow had been falling, and one of the guys turned up in his little Jeep, parked outside and came into the party and whatever. He was staying at another hotel down the road. And when he went out to get into his Jeep, they had wrapped it in pink toilet paper. And of course, it had frozen. So now the whole car was just a pink, solid, frozen thing. So he had to get a cab and came back the next day to pick up his car and cut through it and got into it. And they'd stolen his steering wheel.
Oh dear.
We were wicked to each other, but great fun. Good fun. Everyone enjoyed it. And Cubby was wonderful. Come back at night, and Cubby would be in the hotel. And if I got back early, we'd sit there and have a drink. And as the guys came in, he'd say, "Do you want to come and have a drink?" And he'd buy them all a drink and say, "Come and have dinner." And he would pay for dinner, and every night he would pay for myself and a couple of others every night. But some nights there'd be like 18 of them come in. But he would pay for everything. And one night I said to him, "Look, Cubby, you've been paying every night for me for lunch, for dinner. Tomorrow night, it's on me, okay?" He said, "Yeah, fine, okay." So the following night we come back and we're sitting at the bar, and the boys come in, and he says, "Come on, come and join us for dinner." So I thought, well, it's the 4 or 5 of us, that's okay. Suddenly there's another 10 come in. I said, "Cubby, it's all yours." Thanks a lot. But he was such a generous man and such a kind man. Yeah, and very thoughtful of his crew.
Yeah. And from what you were saying earlier, with Barbara Broccoli being on the the ice sequence, she sort of very much had her father's instincts for being.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was wonderful. She would look after the crew and the girls. And because Cubby had put her through every department, from special effects to wardrobe and hair and design, she knew everyone's job, really. She wasn't an expert at all of them, but she knew how it worked. So that's why she became and has become a great producer, because she understands what people do, and she's very aware of people's problems and how to solve them, and how to help them. And she knows when somebody's kidding them. Like if someone wanted something, Cubby would say, "Do you need it?" And you knew you had to say the truth. If you needed it, you got it. If you think about it and let me know again. So you'd go back and say, "Yeah, we don't need that much, but I do need this." So I was on the Rock when I got a phone. We were doing the sequence on the Rock, and we were getting prepared to go down to Morocco. And I just finished at about 6:30. I was going past the production office, and the girl said, "Excuse me, there's a phone call for you." I said, "Okay." I said, it's John Glenn it's Cubby in London. So we were doing the second unit, and John was in London. And he said, "I've got this is Tom Pesner. So he put me on to Tom Pesner. So Tom said, "Oh, hi, Paul." He said, "We're just going through your budget for Morocco, and you want 22 men stunts." I said, "Yes." So he said, "Well, I've got Cubby here, and John Glenn, and Dougie Noakes, and we're wondering, and Michael Wilson, we're wondering why you need 22 men." So I had no papers in front of me. I just I said, "Well, I've been through it, and that's my budget. I've got 5 principals to cover. I've got 2 units going at one time, 36 horses on each unit." And I tried to explain it to them what it was, why I needed them. And they said, "Well, are you sure?" So I said, look, John, you've obviously done the storyboards for this, and I'm going by the storyboards. And to give you what you want on this movie, I need 22 men to do it. If you're saying I can't have 22 men, you just cut down the storyboards, cut down the action. I'm quite happy to go to Morocco with 2 men. I'll have a great time. 22 bored stuntmen are a pain in the backside. You just have to make sure that everyone is doing their job, and you're on to them all the time. You make sure they're there in the mornings, and they're all behaving themselves. But you know, that's what I'm saying. That's what I need, is 22 men to give you what you want on your screen. And in the end, they said, "Well, yeah, okay." And I had 22 men, but I needed every one of them. There's not one of them that I could have said, you know, I don't need. With 2 units, sometimes I had 3 units going at the same time. So you've got your principal actors, you've got all doubles, you've got the guys that are playing parts for you out of the stunt crew, and then you've got to make sure that the leaders of these second units that are going are compatible with the first unit. So everyone has to be look the same. And yes, it was difficult, but we got through it with 22 stunt guys, and lots of Moroccans as well, of course.
I think every time you sort of go for an automatic door after you watch this film, you do sort of, you know, you're quite a bit wary, aren't you? This is quite a gruesome scene that's coming up. Did you meet Thomas Wheatley at all, that plays Saunders?
Not really, no.
No.
I think we when we did the there was one part I did meet him, but I think this area I was shot in the studios. So yeah, I did meet him, and had to make sure he was safe on this. That's right. I was thinking of another scene, but yes, we shot this in Pinewood, and it was tricky. The doors, making sure that they stopped when they were supposed to. Because the piston system it was really weird and you had to show it, which was, it's, you know, normally you wouldn't have had to go into detail and show how a door goes, you know, thing like that. But just for the audience point of view, that to be able to see it and how he can control it from remote.
And again, I think this is the realism that they wanted to have with Dalton coming through. Whereas, you know, 10 years ago they might have thrown him in a pool of piranhas or something like that. Whereas this is much more sort of killed of an everyday object. The same with the way that Necros kills with his the cord of his headphones. Sort of, you were saying, of course, storyboards being invaluable to any sequence. Do they kind of tend to change quite a bit for the film, or?
No, you try to stick to them, and sometimes it's you not necessarily the best location. to shoot it. But if it's there on the paper and it's drawn with trees in the background, the second unit tend to go out and look for a location with trees in the background, whereas it might have been a better one without the trees. So some second unit directors really stick to the main unit's storyboards just to make sure that they're complying with what the director wants. But they're very important. And you can do your budget by them. You know exactly what you're going to try to achieve, and then you try to improve upon obviously the storyboards. One of the storyboards in this, which I never forget, is Art Malik holding onto the horse on the bridge, and that complied exactly to the storyboard of him standing there with the horse and the bridge in the background. I mean, and the people around him, and it was, you could have shot the storyboard, and that was exactly as he was standing.
Right. We're about to go to basically sort of now go on to Morocco. What was Morocco like to work?
Yeah, it was lovely. It was hot, and a lot of tummy upsets for most of the crew when they first arrived. But we'd done the recce, and we'd gone down to the Atlas Mountains, over the mountains, and sorted out the locations in what was that. But this was in Tangiers. So yeah, it was quite. There was Harry's bar was there, a few nice restaurants and bars, but yeah, it was just very hot. The locations were good. We got good help from the local police, and yeah, it was all pretty good. Tangiers, we'll come to it, the running over the roofs, which was quite spectacular and great to do, to work out how you could do it and find the roofs that you could jump from the roof to roof and balcony to balcony. But this was in the main town of Tangiers. This was in the studio. He was a nice man, John Rhys Davis.
Oh yeah. I think I'm just a bit behind where you are. So have you got him in the hotel now?
Yeah, he's just going in. So
yeah. So sorry, you were saying about work, John Rhys Davis, a nice guy to work with.
Yes, yeah. I've also worked with him on Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course. But a very nice man. Great singer. He's a baritone, I think.
Oh, right, yeah.
So yeah, I think he came into it as singing. Opera.
I think he does do a small bit of singing in Raiders. I think it's when he
does, yeah.
Yeah, when they go on the ship, yeah. And it's nice, of course, that he's in the next Indiana Jones film, and he's in the. So it'll be interesting to see how much is in that one, really.
Yes, yeah. And he's lost a lot of weight.
Oh yeah.
I think he was a good character in the film. He played what could be a difficult character to play as a Russian, but I think he came over as a very sensitive actor, to the part. I think he played it very well. They're trying to be, Russian, and I'm just getting up to the fight. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he played it very well. He is a good actor anyway.
And I think it's quite a defining scene, this, isn't it? But
Yeah,
in terms of what
it put a Bond character exactly how he was going to, how vicious he could be. You wouldn't have believed Roger doing it somehow as vicious as that.
No, he would have done it, say, very differently. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Timothy set the style in the scenes.
Particularly with stripping the clothes off Pushkin's girlfriend. I mean, again, Roger wouldn't have done that. That was more of a harder edge sort of the tone to it. I found the impression that John Rhys Davies and Timmy Dalton got on quite well on set. Is that right?
I'm sure they did. I mean, they did from my point of view, but they were, yeah, it was quite fun to do. It wasn't a chore to be around them. There was no one that was going to be a pain in the butt.
I get the sense, is it fair that Dalton was a bit more, took the role a bit more serious than, not saying that Roger Moore didn't take it seriously, but maybe Timothy was a bit more serious on set than Roger was. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah, with Roger, it was everything was you could enjoy having a joke all the time. I mean, it was stopping him not making jokes all the time. Are you up to the sequence of jumping over the roofs?
I've just getting to the point where Netcross is about to shoot John Rhys Davies.
Yeah, I'll pause it and then I'll catch up.
Okay. So you're a bit further ahead of me, are you?
Yeah, I'll come back on when you see him start to run over the roofs.
Okay. So yeah, it's just shot John Rhys Davies now, and again, I believe this building, it was in the UK, so again, sort of dressed up to look Moroccan. And we're just about to exit the building in a second. Yeah, just running up the stairs with the police chasing him now. And he's just gone out the door, and he's now on the roof. He's now on the rooftops. Yeah, he's now starting to run on the rooftops.
Yeah. So that was difficult. We had to find the right roofs. Have you seen the ladies yet looking up?
Just in a second, I think we see them. He's just used the aerial to spring back to knock out the policeman. And yes, now they're looking up and seeing him jump
across the roofs, worked it all out, and then I got Simon was doing all the running and jumping from one roof to a balcony, which was tricky, but he did very well. And getting what was his name? The police chief.
And it's one of the Suhala family, isn't it? Yes.
A lovely man. I've worked with him several times since.
Yeah.
Lovely man. Yeah, it's getting running over the rooftops and the boys chasing Timothy.
I believe it's Nadim Suhala, isn't it? I believe is the and I don't know if they still have it, but down in Red Roof in Cornwall, just outside Cornwall, there's a place called Conway Castle, and it's a restaurant, and it used to be a hunting lodge for, I think it's Henry V. So got really old, and the Swahala family used to maybe still own it, and that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
I went there a couple of times without knowing the connection to afterwards.
Mm. But his two daughters are on TV all the time, aren't they? One's an
Oh yes,
actress.
yeah,
But,
yeah. Very touted family. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
But this was lovely. On the quay sides,
Mhm.
in the boats, and what was her name? Rabbit.
Oh yes, Rabbit. What's her first name?
Mm.
I'll have a quick look at the credits.
But yeah, she was in Frankenstein Unbound. She played Frankenstein's wife.
Hmm.
He wanted her, but yeah.
I mean, before you took over Stunt Supervisor, you were doubling Roger Moore, for example, in Octopussy.
Mhm.
I assume as Stunt Supervisor, you wouldn't have had the time to have done much doubling for Timothy at all.
I did have to occasionally because Simon may have been off somewhere else doing something. But at the end sequence when he's firing all the little guns and in his office, in his playroom with all the soldiers, I doubled for Timothy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do a couple of times I had to double for him.
We haven't mentioned Joe Don Baker. Do you recall him?
Yes, no, he was just a nice man. It was no problem at all. I had a good double for him in Les White when he gets clobbered at the end. But apart from that, he was very good.
I was just having Catherine Rabbit, yeah.
And all the girls were actually stunning, beautiful girls.
The one thing I got. Sorry, Paul.
No, I'm just saying I had Eddie Kidd came over as well.
I think very early into the shooting, there was a big press conference in Vienna, and I think that was. Do you get the sense that the one aspect that Timothy Dalton didn't quite enjoy was the exposure and the attention that he got from the media, the fans? Do you think that was he struggled a bit compared to Roger?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I didn't think he quite knew how to handle it because he was a private person and he had his own views on life and politics, and I think he was restricted to keep them to himself. I think during the early, really the first movie certainly, and maybe in a second, but yes, he was more political than Roger was, obviously, but yeah, he was. He didn't have the opportunity to express himself as the way as he would have done. I think if he'd had more control of his character and the movie itself.
Do you mean by that, Paul, more sort of you would like to have a bit of social commentary, perhaps what was happening in?
Yes, yeah, I think he would have brought it up to date, and he would have been a bit more in terms of politics. I think he would have been a bit, whether it was how his character would have worked in a society. I think he would have tried to have manipulated it the way he wanted it. But Cubby was, Bond was Bond, and they were being as up to date as they thought they should be in terms of being more politically correct in terms of women and other features. But yeah, he was his own man, and I think he was slightly restricted in terms of playing it the way he wanted to play it.
Hmm. I mean, did Timothy Dalton have much of a contribute? Well, we've already said that he'd like to throw himself into as much as possible. Would he sort of also maybe suggest certain ways of doing a fight that was perhaps more to his taste?
He would, yeah. I mean, he would certainly try. He would already have, by the time it got to me, it would probably already have been discussed and held back. The only things we could do is on the set to make him a little bit more vicious, make him a little harder, in terms of the physical side of what we could get him to do. But you couldn't change the feeling of the characters or the action too much, because they were set in stone according to what Cubby was feeling at that time, and the writers and Michael obviously, and the original writers of the script, because there were several writers on those.
Yeah, this particular one was Richard Maybaum and Michael G. Wilson. I assume you probably didn't really meet Richard Maybaum at all.
No.
Was Michael Wilson around? Maybe less than.
Yeah, right. Michael was always there. He was very supportive to the crew, and obviously with the writing, very influential in what went on, and a very nice man, just and a good actor. He was in several of the movies. So yeah, he was great influence on the what went into the storyboards and went into the script.
Oh yeah. One scene that was deleted was what was referred to as the magic carpet sequence for the escape from. Do you have recollections of doing that?
It was such a shame, and John Glenn will tell you it was a shame he had to cut it out. It was just the sequence, that particular sequence was too long in Morocco. But once he goes over the rooftops, then there was a magic carpet where he picks up a carpet and puts it on the telegraph wires, and sits on it, and he goes across the skyline on a carpet. He then hits a banner that's going across the road and grabs the banner, comes off the carpet, swings down, and there's Eddie Kidd on a motorcycle with a basket on the front, and he swings down and sits up on the back of the bike with Eddie driving, and then he takes over and they do a wheelie, and he goes through Moroccan alleyways like you wouldn't believe. Eddie Kidd was fantastic. And with Simon on the back, and sometimes just a dummy because it was so dangerous on those narrow steps, because he was going down steps. But Eddie did a great job, and it was a very funny, action-filled sequence, and it was just a shame that it was cut short.
Oh yeah, because there is a version of it on the DVDs and Blu-rays, but it does cut once he gets on the motorbike and does a sort of wheelie. But from what you're saying, it went on a little bit further still. Yeah. I remember Desmond Llewellyn saying in an interview that when he was in the Q lab, there's a scene where one of the technicians sit on the sofa and it revolves and he goes under it, and then Desmond Llewellyn sits down, and he always wished that they kept a bit more of that take, because he sits down and then sort of puts his arms back and starts to relax a little bit, but of course it cuts a bit too. But little things like that, unfortunately we haven't seen the light of day yet. I mean, how many sort of takes would you roughly do? How much coverage would you do for, say, the ice chase sequence, if a sequence is say 4 minutes long, what's say the first version of it, you're always trying to make sure there's enough to sort of, you know, suit different cuts and
Yes,
like
yeah. You have to make sure you work with the director to give us as much coverage, and it's the beginning and the end. You know, if they cut too quickly, it's nice if they give you a little bit more to play with. It's you don't have a great deal of editing, but as long as you've got enough to give to the editor, I much rather stay on a shot a little bit longer, so the editor has a choice.
Yes.
If you cut out too soon, he hasn't got a choice. As a director, if you want to direct in your head, to edit in your head, you can give the editor exactly what you want him to have, because you don't give him any more. Yeah. He has to shoot, he has to edit what you give him. Whereas if you give him too many takes, too many versions of that, it's up to him. He can decide how the scene goes. So a lot of directors are very careful of not giving the editor or the producers too much stuff to play with, that they can change what you want to go up on screen. But this was a nice fight with I had Brian Bowes and Del Baker with the two guards, military guards, and these guys were very good.
Am I right that this is another Doug Robinson sequence?
No, this is just me out. Out in I think this was shot out in Morocco.
Oh right, yeah. So you would have been the one sort of coordinating this particular, because I know you say some you were, when you were passing off certain things to Doug Robinson, etc. Was that because of just physically?
Yeah, I would have to go somewhere else. I'd go tell them exactly what I wanted, and then we'd work it out before I left, and then they would be there to shoot it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you just rely on them to do exactly what you rehearsed, and they did. They, you know, Dougie was wonderful. He was a good fight man, and so was Bill Weston. So this, yeah, you would do. Normally, I would be there all the time, to make sure that everything is carried out correctly. But yeah, this was all in Morocco. And you'll see that was Brian Bowes going past, driving that. He's just been knocked out on the floor in the cell.
Yeah.
He walks back out again.
And he's driving the
Some guys. So.
Yeah, I suppose if you watch, you know, for films enough times, you will see that with stunt people sort of appearing in the
doubling up, wearing different costumes.
Of course, we just had the introduction of Art Malik. Do you remember Art at all? Yeah,
he was lovely. Art, I've worked with him a couple of times. He's a joy to work with. Just a lovely man. On this particular sequence, I had crash mats and boxes underneath, and it was difficult to get. She was a bit scared at first, but she did very well.
Because I believe both Timothy and Miriam, they both jumped from the onto crash mats, so getting involved.
Yeah.
I suppose it helps if you've got one actor, say like Timothy Dalton, willing to do a lot. It encourages other actors to do things that normally they would say, well, you know, get a stunt person to do it.
I mean, he did convince me. He said, come on," and she did the jump, which was lovely.
Yeah. What were the studio facilities like in Morocco?
You what, sorry?
The studio facilities, bit
Well,
basic.
they didn't have any. They said, "Oh, we got the Atlas Studios," and we drove down there, and there's a wall going maybe 400 feet. It was like a massive wall with big gates, and it said the Atlas Studios. And you opened the Atlas, the doors went in, and there was the desert and the Atlas Mountains in the background. There was nothing in there. It was just a wall and a little walls at the side. So we built stables and sheds and God knows what, just for our horses. We had 36 horses, 34 horses, and which we had to double up. So we had 2 units going. And when we started, the wardrobe department would say we'd line them all up so that they were matching. The second unit was matching the first unit. And they say, "Oh, his turban, the third one in had a red turban on." But once they started galloping, it didn't matter. It was, as long as you got enough men there looking like Moroccans with turbans on, you get away with it.
Yeah, I imagine that's horsemen galloping and sort of the big fight scene on the air base on the runways must be very difficult for a continuity person to try and sort of keep. It must be, they must tear their hair out really, because of course you
do the best you can, to match up. And you start off, as best you can, matching everybody, and then once you get going, it's no one's going to notice. It's just chaos. Once you get 36 horses galloping with camels, and it's interesting. I really enjoyed it.
We didn't mention on the Aston Martin sequence, Remy Julian, who's the stunt driver.
Yes.
Do you remember him at all?
Yeah, I've worked with Remy and the boys on other movies as well. And they're great drivers, there's no doubt about it. They're the best. Remy in particular. But they work, they practice, and they get it right. That's what you pay for when and they did pay Remy and the boys a lot of money over the years on Bond movies, but they would go away and practice for 2 months, like to get the trucks on the Living Daylights on 2 wheels. Took months to do, but when you came to do it, they got it in the day, and that's what you pay for. And Remy was brilliant at that, organizing and very mechanical. He knew what to do, and an engineer, really.
Oh yeah, we certainly did a lot of great sequences. I mean, the Citroen 2 CV and For Your Eyes Only, and you said the tankers in License to Kill, and the wheelies, and yes,
and that's what you pay for.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think, but pureness. So I believe that things like the jail scene, you would be shooting for several days, and so I think a lot of people may not realise how long it takes to shoot these action sequences. You've got to cover them from all angles and all sorts of things, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, we were saying at the beginning that it's changed a lot in terms of health and safety. Does that mean that it takes longer to prep a sequence because of all the tick boxes you have to go through?
Yes, they spend much more money on action these days, on stunts and action, than we ever did. I remember on one of the TV series that Fred Haggerty, who was a stunt coordinator on for Texas, I think it was, or one of the early ones, and Johnny Huff, the director, had a sequence where he was doing second unit, and he wanted a car to go round into underground car park and crash the car into a post. And Fred said, I can't do that because they told me not to damage the car. They're rented cars. So Johnny said, I want you to smash it into the thing. So Fred went to the producer and said, look, Johnny wants me to crash this into a car, into a post, just to hit the wing. And the producer looked up, and his insurance claim or whatever, he said, yeah, you can do £68 worth of damage, that's all. So that's how you were restricted. They just didn't want to spend money. They would hire cars in for the day and then not, really tear them apart and screech them everywhere and then send them back. These days, they get months to train actors, to prep cars, to do wire work. It's just amazing. I would love to be in the middle of it now, with the safety of wires that they've got now. But they get time to prep, and we never did. You'd have to go on the set and they'd say, okay, we're shooting that this afternoon. And you go, what? But I had no time to prep. But, so you made it up and you made it work and you got it done. But these days, you can always rely on the health and safety and say, well, I can do it this afternoon, but if anything goes wrong, it's down to you. Oh, well, you will take your time and get it right. And so they're willing to spend more money.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This was a great sequence in the desert. Obviously, we were in Morocco, and this is supposed to be Afghanistan. And there are no palm trees in Afghanistan. So looking at an oasis with palm trees just didn't fit Afghanistan.
That's a good point, yeah. I think sorry, Paul?
Yeah, it was great fun to have that many horses and men and to make up sequences and get them all going in one direction and having camels, and it was things you like to play with and make sure everyone's in the right position and you've got the right doubles to do, your principals if you need them on doubles for a second unit. They have to be in the right clothes and so yeah, it's logistically it's difficult sometimes when you've got 2 or 3 units going. Make sure everything is working and in continuity as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, for film fans, this area was used in films like The Man Who Would Be King and Lawrence of Arabia, so it was quite a well-known sort of shooting.
I was there. I thought I'd never come back to this place again, and I think about 2 years later, I was there on Spies Like Us.
Oh, right.
Same locations in the desert. Just
again, the more films you watch over the years, you do see certain places crop up because they're reliable, they're set up for it. That's why you use them.
And Americans and the local politicians are good to you and allow you to do certain things. Like we were able to use the runway at Wazazat and took it over. Built sheds and everything there so that we could knock them down.
But it was still an active airstrip, wasn't it? I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
But I suppose apart from needing to know when planes were coming in, I suppose it didn't really pose much of an issue, really.
There were so few planes coming in.
And what was the best location you've been on a Bond film?
Best locations, I mean, where you enjoy it, I mean, on Acapulco, you know, to be at the house in Acapulco on License to Kill. It was a beautiful house, fantastic house in Acapulco. That was a wonderful location. But, you know, just to be out here in the desert, and we shot many times there, but to be in the desert at night, just to look up at the stars, it's just pitch black, no lights anywhere, just to look up and see the Milky Way. Just you feel you can reach up and touch the stars, you know, it's that clear and close.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love the desert. I love being up in Alaska. I'm sitting on the mountain in the snow, listening to the wolverines and the bears and the wolves, watching the aurora borealis over your head. You know, it's just the moments in your life that you never forget, you know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I always say we're very fortunate, you know, in our business. We're paid to go to places that people that pay to go to.
Yes.
And we're there and we complain about the hotel. Yeah, but when you're there for 6 months, it's you know, you want to be comfortable. But some lovely locations, and Key West was wonderful. Like that. But as I say, the extremes are really nice to be out in the desert in that sort of heat, or to be up in Alaska or in Finland.
Because I believe they had quite a bit of heavy snow, which obviously made it very filmic, with all the snow on the mountains on the runway sequence. So that really does make it feel like it's Afghanistan. So I think that really adds an element. I suppose you've got the heat, and then you've got the extremities, haven't you? Sort of.
Yes, but we were actually on the runway there, and it actually snowed. I couldn't believe that it would you know, snow, but it was coming down from the Atlas Mountains. And on Spies Like Us, we got washed out on the in a wadi, in a riverbed. We were shooting with camels, racing camels, and 40 horses, and doing a race, chasing an ambulance. And there was clouds in the distance up in the mountains. Within 3 hours, we were flooded out. The riverbed was just taken over, and we had to get out quickly. And it rained, and all where you can see now, when this was on another movie, it went green. The rain overnight, the next day, it was like a green hue of plants coming up out of the sand. It didn't last long, but it was, I suppose that's nature.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Woman under there until it rains. This was a great sequence to do. You know, using big toys, bulldozers, and running down sheds.
And so again, it's sort of a few weeks' work, isn't it? I suppose if you put it all together.
Yeah, that was Simon coming out of there, and then I had Simon and Royale on coming out of the bath.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was quite funny. But the explosion a little bit earlier, that was very close to Simon. He was on a air ram and flying out, but the explosion was a bit too soon for him. Really, it was really dangerous, but he got away with it.
Is that when the little digger has the grenade and it goes into the sandbags? Is that the explosion?
That was another one, yeah.
That's another one, yeah, yeah.
That was I think, who did I have on that? There was Greg Powell, I think. That was Greg.
Okay, how was Timmy Dalton with the guns handling, and because if you quite a bit of gunfire he does in this scene. Again, was that natural to Timothy?
Yeah, he was great. I mean, I just went through, the gun with him with the armor and made sure he knew exactly what even blanks were capable of. Yeah, but he took it to it very easily, very well.
And again, we had an audience question coming about this very sequence, the Hercules plane and all this sort of complexities. And I think this is, for a lot of fans, their favorite sequence in the film. And I believe Timothy Dalton was able to sort of look like he was steering the plane because they had a driver that was sort of, in the other,
Yes, but it was just amazing to be able to use toys like that, and to be able to drive up in the back of it. And yeah, it was great fun to do. And Timothy was great. I mean, he loved being up there. It was, he really enjoyed it. You don't often get to fly or drive a plane.
Oh yeah. But again, of course, you're setting off explosions against sort of very sort of valuable, pieces of machinery. So again, it's kind of,
yeah, you couldn't get too close to the plane with the explosions, but the rest of it we got away with. And Roy Allen being pulled out of the that truck. All the guys were doubling up and playing different roles. That's why I needed the 22 men plus to be able to do all this on first and second unit. Great explosions. Got some great stills of the horses coming away from a massive explosion behind it.
And again, all the horses, I take it, were kind of used to being stunt horses, and you can just use any horse, I imagine, for be around explosions and gunfire, etc.
We had about 200 horses come for an audition, but some of them were so badly treated that they were using really sharp spurs to control them. And we said, we don't have those. So we picked the ones we want and we trained them.
Yeah.
And this is Jason White being have his nose pulled off with a wiper.
It does look a bit painful, that that bit, yeah. And again, it's probably the little things that look like, smaller stunts, perhaps the ones that are more difficult. And, I believe the Hercules, you couldn't actually have the back down, so they had to use, was it a converted furniture truck or something that they used to go in the
Yes, yeah. Had to make it work, but you couldn't actually drive and go up and with it down. So yes, it was just tricked by Canberra and using a furniture truck to do it. But it all looked good and it all cut together very well.
And again, you've got lots of the principals doing stuff here with Jerome Corbet and
John
Necros in the little truck, sort of chasing the plane, and Kara's driving the, so are you a bit conscious of extra conscious when it's the principals involved?
Yes, yeah, you just have to rehearse them, really. It's just a matter of rehearsals and feeling comfortable that they're able to do it. That was all set up, and I had Del Baker jumping out of that before it exploded. Yeah, it's just the double point, but yeah, very good. I mean, he was always wanted to do more than you would allow him, really. As most of them do, most of them want to do as much action as is safe, really, and you have to make sure they're safe.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's in films, you get to use big vehicles and big toys, really. We love playing with them.
Yeah, yeah.
On daylight, 200 cars, just to crash and burn, and you don't get that in real life.
Oh, no.
Thank God.
Well, yes, that's right. We have a lovely fight sequence here. We're between Necros and Bond.
Oh, yeah. And they did it up there, and then we covered it in the studios. This was in the studios.
Yes, we got the studio interior of the Hercules with the fight between them, and I believe that the set was on a gimbal, so it would move and give it the illusion of flight.
Again, this is great editing, to build up the tension. It's where you cut to next, what you see next, and to build up the tension between them. And this was all done for real. That's Jake and BJ.
Yeah, and they're holding on for real, aren't they? They've got hidden parachutes, but they are holding on to that. Yes,
yeah, they've got to work out. They worked out the sequence, where they would be on it, and how they would get round to each other, and do the fight sequence as storyboarded. Now they have to do it, 2,000 feet up.
So when when you've actually got the actors doing their intercuts, would you have been involved with that part of it?
Yes, yeah, we were there on the stage, and we watched what they'd done out there, and then we replicated it as best we could inside. So we just had the bag hanging down, and they were hanging on it, and we had wind and God knows what. But yeah, it was just it was replicating what was done for real out there, hanging from underneath a Hercules.
Yeah,
you'll see in one sequence in a moment when BJ was still on there trying to climb back in, and it swung up and down, and it could have been knocked unconscious if it had hit the roof of the Hercules. See, now it started to swing, and that's out of control, and he had to come off it. We then replicated it in interior and got the ability to do a somersault into it. But BJ had actually had to fall off. He came off it for safety reasons, and then we went back up again.
Because even though the actors are, of course, on a stage, but they have to be a few feet up to do it, because you've got the, so still that there's a risk with that as well.
I had boxes and mattresses underneath, and crash mats. But the art department did a fantastic job of the back of the Hercules. You wouldn't be different because you weren't up there.
Yeah, I think if you think of nowadays, of course, it'd just be a green screen for the mountains, and of course they're actually made out of polystyrene or whatever it might be, and done by hand, and it's it's quite an impressive backdrop.
And it was quite a sizable Hercules that they as a model that they crashed.
Yeah.
And this bridge that you see them go across is only about 12 feet off the ground. And I think John Richardson, the foreground underneath that is all model in foreground. And you'll see him stop and pick up the guy. And when he waves to the plane going over the top, that storyboard was exactly as he was. They replicated it exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a very impressive model, and you know, it's the foreground miniatures. It's, yeah, I think it's a really great. You know, you wouldn't. It's one of those things you'd never know it wasn't real unless someone told you. Again, in my research, I came across that when they were doing the fight on the bridge with the horses running away from the gunfire and the tanks, that one of the horsemen fell and he had quite a nasty injury. I think he damaged an artery. Do you remember that happening?
On the bridge.
Oh yeah. Apparently, when they were doing the bridge sequence and the horsemen were galloping away from the Russians that were coming behind them with the tanks and everything, apparently one of the horsemen fell and lacerated an artery and was okay, but it was a bit of a.
He got crushed against the side. The horse, when they were all galloping over the bridge, he was forced into the side of the bridge and smashed his leg. I think that's what it probably was.
Yeah.
Pretty badly hurt on his leg, but yeah, it happens. Controlling horses, full gallop is not easy.
Oh yeah. We haven't mentioned, of course, although we've been talking about the wonderful sets, Peter Lamont, the production designer. Again, terrific in replicating, the real interiors of the plane, etc. But do you remember Peter Lamont at all?
Oh yeah, it's a great guy. Yes, I mean I worked with him over so many years. Yes, just a pleasant, lovely gentleman, but so talented. I mean, his eye for detail and what he could achieve is one of the best in the world, if not the best. Just a nice man. He had a great team with him as well, and it is down to the team you get around you, and he's always had the best team.
Again, a lovely miniatures and really good sequence.
Remy and his girlfriend, I think.
Yeah, lovely explosion. We haven't mentioned John Glenn too much, but of course you worked with John on a couple of pictures by this point. How is he as a director?
Oh, he's the best, because if you've got an idea, he will listen, and they're the best type of directors. You can't tell a director how to direct his movie. You can only suggest certain ways of doing things, and if he likes it, he'll accept it, and John will accept it. If you've got an idea, you go, yeah, great, let's do that. Some other directors just don't like that. They want their view of it and nobody else's, and that's it. Even though the other view might be improve it. But John is a wonderful director and editor. He knows exactly where he's going to cut. He's cutting in his head all the time. He knows exactly what shot he wants, how long he wants it for, and what he's going to cut to next. But he's also a lovely man and a pleasure to work with. So you can't have much better than that on a movie. He's great producers as well. So yeah, it's a franchise that is probably one of the best that you could possibly work with, a group of people, in terms of quality, of humanity, of caring for their crew. There's not many companies that are really bothered.
Hmm.
As long as they get it in the can and it's for the right money, that's it. But it's Bond has been a wonderful family franchise that I hope continues in that vein as well.
Oh yeah, it seems to be in good health, doesn't it? So again, this is a nice little action sequence to round off the film, and of course you've got explosion.
I'm doubling for Timothy in that bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where Simon was. He's probably off doing another unit. Or we may have lost him at that point. It's at the end of the movie in terms of shooting as well.
Yeah. Because I suppose a lot of the crew, as well as the actors, will have start dates, end dates, and other things they're due to be on. So, I mean, did Joe Don Baker, was he very relish doing the action in this scene?
Yes, I mean he was very good with weapons anyway. So he was very confident in doing what he was asked to do. I just had to double in for this part because that was dangerous. It was a heavy sort of stand and quite a heavy thing on top of it of Waterloo. So yeah, the last little bit he sort of fell back and we eased it onto him. But yeah, we had Les White doing the stunt itself, taking it.
I would have thought any stunt you've got to kind of sort of go backwards on something can't be that that pleasant, really. Even if it's something small like that, it's you can't see where you're going.
And we wanted to make it look heavy, and it was heavy. So Les could take it, and you're going back onto a heavy desk. But yeah, anything going backwards, it's like it's easier on the trampoline to do a back somersault than it is to do a front somersault, because the front somersault you're looking down and you're waiting to go all the way around to come back up again, whereas a back somersault you're looking straight down at your bed. So it's easier, but mentally it's so much difficult to throw your head back. You always feel that the back of your head is the most vulnerable part of your head. So just throwing it back, it makes it difficult mentally to accept. Whereas forward, you feel quite easy to do a front somersault or a tumble. But going backwards, as you say, is difficult.
There's a lovely cameo by John Barry here, where he's conducting the orchestra. The one thing we haven't really commented on, and it's so integral to the film, is the music in the action sequences, but also the quieter moments, and it really enhances your work and everybody's work, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they've got to feel, the composers, when they're putting a tone of sound, of music to a build up to a stunt or build up to a action sequence, they've got to understand the feeling of what they want to give to the audience, how to stretch out a moment just by a sound. And they've got, it's such a talent to be able to compose anyway, but then to enhance a scene in such a way that your heart, your mind is going with it just purely on the music, and you're involved in it. And it is an immense talent, and quite rightly they're lauded for it, because they enhance so many scenes and so many films, that create such wonderful sounds.
One actor I should mention, Walter Gotell. Did you ever meet Walter Gotell? He plays the Russian counterpart to M in this. He's with
Yes, and met him on Spies Like Us. No, living. Not the Spy. Yeah, the Spy Who Loved Me, was it?
he was in The Spy Who Loved Me, yeah, and Moonraker, and yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's just the sequence. Never had a lot to do with him, but yes, he was there when we were shooting action sequences.
If you watch the show Pointless on the BBC, and they ever have a Bond question of actors, you want a pointless answer, you put your name him, and you get and you win. So that's come up a couple of times. But so looking at it again, is the Living Daylights a film that you're particularly proud of? How does it sit in terms of your Bond work?
Really, for the scale of the Moroccan units that we had going, it was a nightmare sometimes to get everybody in the right position and the right location at the right time, and get the right horses. At one time, the horses had like a flu, and we were advised not to use them, but we had to use some, the better ones, because you've got to get the sequence done. You've got to shoot the movie, and we had to be very careful with putting the horses together, or the ones that were sick. We just couldn't use them. Just had to divide them up and only use the ones that were fitting well. But yeah, it's just to keep the movie going. I had Greg Powell as a horse master, and just to get that many horses together, and to make sure that they're fitting well, and you're not abusing them. And a lot of the Moroccans, they don't really have a lot of feeling for their horses. They just use them, and sometimes abuse them. So we just had to make sure that we didn't cross any lines with using Moroccan horses that were being ill-treated. So we got those out as soon as we could.
Yeah. Well, we're sort of coming into the film. So if there's any last minute questions that the audience wants to ask, please do put them in the chat function. I just have a couple of little questions to just sort of wrap up. I was just wondering, of course, we covered a lot of ground as we've gone, but is there any members of the cast or crew we haven't mentioned that you feel we ought to?
No, I think you've covered it. I think we've covered the people that we were watching and talking about them. No, I think we covered most of them. I know it was John, who was one of the guys, was on the airstrip. Was very good. Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered most of them. I can't think of anyone that we haven't discussed.
Well, I've got a little note here. Alec Mills, director of photography. I don't remember Alec Mills at all.
Yeah, I mean, the crew, you can't have a better crew. Alex and his team, and with Arthur Weston doing the second unit, it was a joy. It's a joy to work with them. There was no egos. Nobody was trying to make a name for themselves. They were all excellent at their jobs. The Kenny F. Fold on the second unit of any of the Bond films with Arthur Weston, as a grip to be able to put the camera where Arthur wanted it, and sometimes on the rock, Kenny would get some 4x2s and make a safe rig sticking out of the rock, looking straight down at 120 feet, and then looking over another side of 1,000 feet, just amazing to have these people that you feel safe enough to put a camera out there, and they are contributing in a way that you don't see on film, but to be able to get into those positions, have a crew that will work to get the best angle, the best shot. And it's difficult. They could sit back and say, oh yeah, put it on a long lens and we shoot it from here. But to be on the edge, on a wide angle, looking straight down, it makes a lot of difference to the movie. And you can achieve that with a crew that is the best view, the best intentions to make the best film possible. And that's what the Bond have. They've always had the best crews available.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Your credit for this one is Stunt Supervisor, and then Licensed Kill Stunt Coordinator. Is there a reason for the difference in the two titles?
I really don't know. I think Bob Simmons was always the supervisor. I really don't know the terminology that would make it any difference. Whether you're supervising the stunts or you're coordinating the stunts, you're doing the same job.
Sure.
You might be able to then have a supervisor and a stunt coordinator, as two different titles, but the job is the same. It's you're supervising the stunts. You might have 2 or 3 units, and like in Mexico, I've had, and over the world, I have a local coordinator to get me the local stunt guys organized. So yeah, I mean, whether you call him assistant coordinator or call him a coordinator in the Czech Republic, and be the supervisor, it doesn't really matter. My job is to organize it and coordinate the whole movie. So that's what that title means to me. Whether it's supervisor or coordinator, I don't mind, as long as they pay me.
Oh yes, as long as you get the same pay. Yeah. We had an audience question from Becca. She wanted to know, not bomb related, but you worked on some Jerry Anderson ITC shows, Space 1999, The Protectors. Any, maybe 1 or 2 memories of those that might spring to mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, wonderful memories of Jerry and Sylvia and all the crew. I used to go in and watch them when they did the puppets with Frank Holland, who was an assistant director, and Derek Meddings, who was the special effects on those. So yeah, then to go on to work with Sylvia and Jerry on the Protectors was a joy. They were, it was a family again, together, and good actors, good locations. We were in Malta and in Spain, and obviously England. But yeah, I mean, they were lovely people. Sylvie was, I remember having lunch at Pinewood with Chaz and Dave. Chaz was a friend of mine. He lived around the corner from me when we were kids. So we were mates, and he was having a meeting, him and Dave were having a meeting with Sylvia Anderson in Pinewood, and I was joining him for lunch. And Chaz always used to swear a little. And every now and again he'd say, well, I'll say, Chaz, don't, this is Sylvia Anderson. You can't swear in front of Sylvia Anderson. This is Lady Penelope. But she loved it. She thought it was very funny. But he couldn't stop himself, of course, Chaz. But yeah, they were lovely people, and I did a couple of signings towards the end of Jerry's life when he was not well. But yeah, I've done a couple of signings with his son. He does the fan show. Yeah, just great memories of those times, and a privilege to have been part of that series. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, I went to convention where Sylvia Anderson was making an appearance, and yes, she was very nice to meet. I just want to wrap up the evening. Is there a favourite moment you have from making the Living Daylights that we haven't mentioned, or maybe what your favourite scene is?
Favorite, I think the opening sequence I really enjoyed, having to make work in 4 minutes of screen time to make Timothy Dalton the new Bond. I think we achieved that, and I think he went on to be a very good Bond. But yeah, I'm sort of proud of that sequence working at that height, hanging on the edge of rocks and things. But again, you know, right through it, I mean, I loved the runway sequence, to be able to get my guys playing parts and being killed off, and explosions. It was just, it was sometimes difficult to get everybody together with the first and second units, but I'm proud that it still looks good. It still all works as a sequence, and a believable sequence, which I think Timothy made more real.
Yeah, he delivers a great realism in the film, and there is so much action. There is a sense of, you know, this is, you know, throw as much as you can in it, but it doesn't overshadow the human story and the romance. And I think I think it's sometimes a bit sort of, when people say what their top favorite Bond films are, they tend to sort of forget Living Daylights. Not that they don't dismiss it, they forget it. And if you look at it again, you realize how balanced it is as a film. And you know,
and I say a lot of people say to me they really enjoyed Living Daylights. So yeah, it's personal taste really, but I think Timothy, I think License to Kill was better, but it's a script as well. It's, you know, making it all work as a story and as an exciting action movie.
oh yeah, they're both brilliant films. I think if you're in the mood for watching a film that's perhaps has a bit more fun to it, you might watch this one. If you want something a bit harder edge, you look at License to Kill. So that's the one. I think what makes the Bond so good is there's a film to suit everybody, and there's a moment in the film that everyone will like, regardless of taste. You know, it's
yeah, and everyone has their own opinion on it. You know,
oh yeah,
either Bond, the actor who's playing Bond, or the script itself, or yeah. So it's good that it's lasted so long in terms of a character. You know.
Well, if you think there was a big hoopla about this being the 25th anniversary film, and but of course now we're past 60, aren't we? So I think probably those working on, say, this film thought, yes, it's a long running series, but I don't think you thought that they'd still be going 60 odd years, you know.
Dr. No, Jesus. That was my first encounter with Dr. No. I lived opposite the Regal Cinema in Edmonton, which was showing Dr. No, and I was living in a stable part of a big old house, and my next door neighbour, we'd seen the film, and I was amazed. I just wanted a Savile Row suit, Connery's suit. I thought were wonderful. And the music was fantastic. The film was fantastic. Dr. No, this new character of James Bond, And I came out with my wife Dolly, and we crossed the road and went into our little cul-de-sac where the house was. And my neighbour ran out and said, "Somebody's just stolen my vehicle." And he'd gone down to the cul-de-sac. I knew he had to turn around and come back to go out. And sure enough, we heard that the gears screaming as the guy was driving this little van round the corner, came straight down the road. Denny, my friend, was on the pavement waving at him to stop. I stepped out in the road. I was Bond, and he was driving towards me, and Bond wouldn't have moved, and I didn't move. And he screamed up towards me, and lucky enough, not wishing to add murder to robbery, he stopped, skidded to a halt right in front of me. I went down. It was an old Bedford van. I pulled the door open, slid it back, grabbed him, pulled him out on the floor. I was about to hit him, and he looked up and he said to my mate, to Denny, "Sorry, Denny, I was only borrowing the van." And I said, "Do you know him?" He said, "Yeah, he used to be a mate. Get him up." So I got him up, and my Bond moment was over. But for those moments, I was standing there, I could hear the music going in my head. Nobody was going to steal my friend's van. What an idiot I was. But from those days on, you know, Bond has been part of my life, really. I've worked on so many of them, and made a living out of them, and worked with some wonderful people. So I can't complain from it being lasting 60 years.
Yeah, I can't think of any other series that has done so, and probably never will. And although you don't work on the films anymore, you still get to go to these conventions in America, and it's a gift that doesn't stop giving, really, isn't it, of being involved with Bond?
As long as fans, you know, appreciate them and enjoy them, and they seem to enjoy them all. But like on Star Wars, they like the earlier ones and the later ones. So everyone has their sort of opinions about their own views of the franchise or the films themselves.
I take it you keep up to date with the Bonds. You enjoy them as an audience member, and
absolutely, yeah. And I worked on a few of them, so the latest ones.
Yeah.
So they're good enough, they're kind enough to phone me up and say, "Come along and either play a little part or do a little stunt."
Was it Skyfall you did a bit on? Was it that the last one you did?
And Spectre. I was the I was the chauffeur.
In the desert.
No, in London, but I finished up on the cutting room floor.
Oh, right.
So,
that's interesting. And you'll be interested to see where it goes next, won't it? That's part of the fun of it, isn't it?
What they're going to do, that's the biggest thing, is how they're going to do it. When at the end of the movie they said James Bond will return, they didn't say 007 will return, they said James Bond will return.
Yes.
How do you get out of that? Did you wake up in the shower and say, "Oh, really happened?"
Yeah. I think some films are always loved more and less by others, and some are diverse a bit, you know, sort of split the audience a little bit. I cannot think of any other Bond film that has done that more than No Time to Die. You either love it or you hate it. I think
I was disappointed in the villains. I don't think it was strong enough to achieve what they did in the end. But that was just my opinion of the movie. But yeah, great action, fantastic action. But I think the plot line was let it down a bit from my point of view. And we've all got our own points of view.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it also depends when people grow up, what their favorite Bond films are and what their favorite actors, and then that shapes people's idea of what they want to see in the cinema as well. So there's lots of factors that go into the whole thing.
And you've got what's going on in the world at the time will influence you. The reality, the morality of political correctness, and all those elements come into your mind to assess what you see and what you want to see, really.
As a closing thought, as we're talking about political correctness, is that people might have heard that the original Ian Fleming books that turned 70 this year have been rewritten in a small way to take out certain. Well, I mean, I'm not sure how to react to those sort of things, really.
Well, I've still got mine.
Oh yeah, I've got some old. Yeah, I've got various copies over the years and old ones as well.
So they can't change that one.
No, they can't change that one. No, yeah, I understand why they're tempted to do that, but then again, surely, yeah.
I think you have to accept what has been. You can't change it.
No.
You want to change it. That's what it was. You have to accept it was acceptable in those days, and you just have to go along with it and say, well, changing it now is not going to, make any difference to the originality of it.
No.
That's what it was, and I think it's a shame to try to modernize it or to make it anything that is different. Would you go back and change Dickens because you didn't like one or two of the points that he made, or characters that he created? Would you change them because they weren't politically correct? Do you not do any Shakespeare because
there's a lot of Shakespeare, isn't there, that you would consider be outdated? Yeah.
Politically correct. It's if you don't like it, don't read it, don't watch it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can change it, or you shouldn't be able to change it.
No, hopefully not. And you start to think, well, if they're doing with books, how long will it be before they think, oh well, I'll edit something out of a film or something, or
yeah,
yeah, or somebody will look at our conversation on YouTube one day and think, well, that's not appropriate for 50, and think, well, we'll cut that out, so a bit dangerous, but we've always got the original versions, as you say, to keep us sort of going.
Yeah, I think that's all we can hope for.
Absolutely. So well, thank you very much, Paul. I think it's probably an interesting conversation to wrap it up. Yeah, I mean, I very much enjoyed talking to you as always. It's always a pleasure, Paul.
Oh, good. Well, I hope your viewers enjoyed it. It just sort of brought back memories for me. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I'll just read some comments before you go. Had the audience. As Rob says, thanks so much for tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Nice talk, Philip. Thanks for asking Paul my question. See you next time. So I think it went well. That's
good.
Well, good luck with the film you're currently working on, and
yes, back on Monday, 5:10, 10 past 5 in the morning, Monday morning. I shall be at Leavesden Studios, freezing cold.
Right, the glamour of movie making. Yeah. Well, with such a nice start, but let you get on, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and
and thanks for the invite. I quite enjoyed seeing it all again, and hope that it was interesting to hear some of the insights into it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a diehard Bond fan. There's stuff that I didn't, haven't heard before, which is always, So I think people enjoyed it, and it was lovely to spend some time with you, Paul. It's fantastic.
Okay, it's my pleasure.
Okay, well, take care. Have a nice weekend, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye.